Outside it is 4 to 5 degrees. Dubai built its own weather indoors.
Children. Inside it is raining. Dubai built its own weather indoors. This is not a sprinkler system, but
How do you actually build weather on purpose inside a building in the middle of the desert? Let's find out together. This is not a sprinkler system, but an entire engineered microclimate.
Building an airport this size is one thing, but building it to hold its own indoor climate separate from 45-degree heat outside is an entirely different
stairs. Before it can hold a climate cold systems this size, this steel has to become something built for a completely different kind of load. Every panel that will eventually hold weather inside has to first survive the exact heat it was designed to escape. This framework has to hold up not just a roof, but an entire climate system living underneath it.
Every beam has to prove it can carry weight. And most structural steel never has to consider which is the weight of moving air and water together. Alongside the steel, this glass is engineered to hold a controlled climate on one side and the desert on the other simultaneously. The panel has to keep two completely different temperatures apart permanently without ever quietly failing over time.
Each section here is treated less like ordinary construction steel and more like the skeleton of something genuinely alive. Before anything is built, they have to understand exactly what kind of desert air this dome will constantly be fighting against. Every panel here will eventually help hold an entire indoor climate exactly where it belongs within the finished structure. Through the exact heat this building is designed to escape, and the pieces of it make their way steadily to the site.
The material has finally arrived, and now it has to become the largest airport ever built with weather of its own inside it.
And before a single beam goes up, and they already know exactly where each climate needs to live inside this structure.
This is the very first cut into a stretch of desert that will soon hold something the desert has never had to support before. Beneath all of that engineered weather is a foundation built to carry every single ounce of it. The first bone of the largest airport ever attempted now finally stands up. Every bolt here has to hold up more than steel, since it has to hold up an entire climate system that has not even been installed yet. Floor by floor, a structure large enough to need its own weather begins its true climb skyward.
At the center of it all, the frame that will eventually hold an entire sky's worth of climate control begins truly taking shape.
Every curve in this dome has to be strong enough to carry glass, steel, and moving weather all at once.
Rib by rib, the shape that will eventually hold an entire indoor sky becomes genuinely unmistakable. The first piece of glass that will eventually separate 45-degree heat from indoor rain finally goes into place. Every seam here has to hold two completely different climates apart permanently without ever failing. For the first time, you can see exactly what this dome is going to look like sealed against the sky. This is the actual machine that will decide exactly how much rain falls and exactly where it falls. Before it controls real weather, this core has to prove it can hit an exact temperature and humidity target every single time without fail. Dozens of these nodes working together are what will eventually create actual falling rain across the atrium below.
Even one single node has to get the droplet size exactly right, since too fine becomes just fog, while too heavy becomes an actual downpour.
For the first time, you can see exactly what this airport is going to look like once fully finished.
Outside the dome, in the same 45-degree heat as always, an entirely ordinary runway system takes shape as expected.
Even these bridges have to manage the transition between two completely different environments every single time a plane docks. With that, the desert outside officially becomes a separate climate from whatever is about to happen inside. Degree by degree, the inside of this building starts feeling nothing like the desert surrounding it outside.
The structure is almost sealed, and already the desert outside feels like a completely different place than whatever is starting to take shape underneath it. Here it is. For the first time, the air inside this sealed dome starts behaving completely differently from the air outside it. Beneath the climate system, an entirely ordinary airport terminal keeps steadily taking shape as expected. This entire section gets its own slightly different climate, which is warmer, more humid, and built specifically to keep real trees alive indoors. Even within one single building, no two zones are actually set to feel the same as one another. Every single drop that falls here has somewhere specific to go, since nothing about this rain is left to chance.
Every single drop of indoor rain still starts with very careful and very human hands behind it.
Working this high inside a structure and this unusual means safety here is never treated as something optional.
This is exactly the kind of moment the entire dome was built to make completely irrelevant. Halfway through construction, you can already feel the genuine difference simply walking from one section into the next. When the storm finally passes outside, and the work simply continues exactly where it led off before the interruption. Even the shopping here happens beneath a sky that was entirely built on purpose from the ground up. Every single drop of indoor rain eventually collects here and gets filtered and gets used again within the system. Nothing about this indoor weather actually goes to waste within the completed system. Hundreds of sensors just like this one will constantly monitor temperature, humidity, and airflow for as long as this dome continues to exist.
Outside in the same heat as always, the runway that will actually launch every single flight finally reaches its full completion.
Before it is ever declared finished, this entire climate has to prove it can run itself start to finish without anyone stepping in. That after all of this, which includes steel, climate, glass, and an entirely engineered sky, the structure now stands complete. Even now, the smallest detail is never rushed, no matter how far along the overall project has already come. One by one, the very machines that built an indoor sky now finally leave it behind for good. The site that once roared with machines now falls completely silent, while what remains behind quietly makes its own weather. Even a terminal with its own weather still needs the same ordinary systems as any other airport in the world. If anything ever goes wrong with the weather in here, and this system exists purely to make it stop immediately without delay.
Even with weather of its own, this building still has to know exactly what the real desert outside is actually doing at all times.
Even the transition zone right at the entrance gets its own careful climate, easing people gently from one extreme into the other. Even the machine that makes the weather gets finished with the exact same care as everything visible around it. This small plate marks the exact point where the desert officially stops, and an engineered sky truly begins. After all of this, which includes cooling systems, mist nodes, and constant testing, an entire airport now stands. Before it is ever declared finished, the entire dome is checked meter by meter one final time without exception. And for the first time, someone is officially watching this runway, ready for its very first incoming flight. Somewhere inside its exact climate is still being measured every single moment, without any pause. Every single light has now been checked and confirmed working exactly as originally designed. Outside the climate-controlled section in the same desert heat as always, and the ordinary parts of an airport still have to work exactly like any other. This is one last walk through something they spent years building, before it finally belongs to someone else entirely. Everything is now ready, except for the very first real flight, still yet to come. Every system, every sensor, and every safety measure has now been approved one final time without exception. The very first aircraft now begins its official approach toward the largest airport ever attempted. Just like that, a plane lands beside an airport that is already raining indoors on the other side of the glass.
There are no fireworks and no big celebration, but simply quiet relief that it actually worked exactly as intended.
Outside, everything works exactly like an ordinary airport, while inside everything is about to feel completely different for the passengers.
The very first passengers step from 45-degree heat into gentle indoor rain, all within the span of just a few meters.
Nobody warned most of them what to expect, yet all of them still stop completely to feel it anyway.
Most of them come here for a flight, and yet almost none of them leave without talking about the weather they just experienced.
Within weeks, what once seemed impossible becomes just another flight schedule, complete with its very own forecast indoors.
It does not need someone controlling it every single minute, but simply needs someone making sure it keeps controlling itself correctly over time.
Months in, and the dome still has not needed to notice a single storm happening just beyond its own glass surface.
Two completely different climates run steadily side by side every single day, exactly as originally designed.
This is one airport with two climates and a line between them that only exists because someone decided to build it in the first place. Every sunrise outside arrives exactly the same way it always has, while inside the forecast still remains entirely up to them.
Outside it is 45 degrees, while inside it is raining exactly as planned from the very beginning.
This is not just steel and climate-controlled glass, but rather what happens when engineers decide.
This video is created for education and information purposes using advanced AI tools and human creativity. All concepts, scripting, and storytelling are independently developed to ensure originality. Visuals and animations are generated or enhanced using AI technologies such as Veo 3, Meta AI, and Grok AI, while final editing and post-production and completed using CapCut and other professional editing tools. No external created content has been copied or reused. Any semblance to real-world environments, factories, or processes is purely coincidental. All scenes shown in this video are digitally created and do not represent real footage. This content is produced with transparency and follows YouTube monetization guidelines.